wait, I think I know who you're talking about, and I
No.
think he goes to my church. So I'm like, oh yeah, like I need to come visit this weekend, like, and it just takes off, right?
Yep.
And so sure enough, he did attend her church. She then reached out to the pastor, who then made an intro. I then reached out with, kind of what I had to talk about and kind of
Hmm.
my career intentions at that point. And he
Yep.
so happened to be visiting DC. He was in the process of moving to Washington, DC, where we were, and I'm in the
Wow.
process of moving to Madison, Wisconsin. So I'm like, we got to get together, so on and so forth. So I met him, and then
Hmm.
just boldly, a lot from just kind of also talking to you, I'm
Yep.
having this conversation with this man in person at this point, and I just sort of blurt out at one point, "Would you be my mentor?" And um, he was like, "Sure." And I'm proud to say he's my mentor to this day. Um,
Amazing.
and every time I come to some sort of hard decision point or whatnot with regard to venture capital, he's always been there as a sounding board. He's got a great track record. He's a Kaufman Fellow, done all these things. He's been a startup founder himself.
Yep.
So that was the next step, right? Now I found someone who's not only done it,
Hmm.
has been there, knows the landscape, but is now also taking a personal interest in me.
Yeah.
I thought I got to double down on this, right? Like if not only if he likes me, but is willing to sort of spend time coaching me and advising me, like I
Yeah.
need as much of that as possible. And so
Sure.
that's probably the next thing. And so I just kind of went down the path of sort of wash and repeat as it relates to that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that brings up 2 points, man. Two of which we've actually talked about on the pod, and the second one I'd love for you to talk about a little bit more. So one is, kind of in my life when I talk about alignment, right? And obviously, we're men of faith and stuff like that. So you can talk about providence and all these things. I mean, the irony, you meet this person in church and all that. We're not going to talk about that today. But when I think about alignment, one of the statements I've made is that, when you are aligned, right, with your purpose or whatever, you can take one step and 1,000 things will work out,
Yeah,
right? Whereas when you're misaligned, you can take 1,000 steps and nothing will work out,
yeah,
right?
for sure.
And with that, I think that one thing that would be great for to hear your perspective on is Matt Harris, came on and was talking to us about the power of light, right, and the power of focus, and the fact that I believe the exact statement, and you'd have to go back and listen to the episode, but he said that light, similar to our room, has the ability to radiate like an entire room, right? But when it is focused in a laser, it can cut through diamonds,
Yeah,
right? And because we've had all these conversations, and you kind of hinted at this, you were going after a lot of different things, but it appears that when you got laser focused on where you were going to go and you took that step, then things, like
uh,
things just started opening up.
yeah. And what's funny, it's also ironic when you're in a certain place and maybe people are not, right? I'm now trying to share with others this revelation I've had about focus and intentionality and
Yep.
knowing your strengths, and people are like, dude, I don't know what you're talking about. And
Yep.
I'm keep working my career path. I'm like, nah, dude, you got to find out what you want to do. That's one thing, right? Yeah, I would say that the power of focus and that alignment, it's like a fist, it's like an arm, right? Right? It's like you just hit so much harder. Everything that you're going after, you hit that much harder because
Mm,
now everything you read, you're retaining. Everything you're searching for all relates to that same thing. All the distractions of your life like fall by
hmm.
the side.
Yeah.
And I think we even had a couple conversations before I left DC about different job opportunities that were still being presented to us, and
Hmm.
we would ask each other, well, is that an opportunity or is that a distraction?
Yeah.
Um, and we talked about how at this point, like even if it's the right amount of money, or more money than we're necessarily looking for. If it's not on the path,
Yep.
it's essentially a distraction, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And the success that I started to build just reinforced that, because then I showed up at ultimately started working at the University of Wisconsin for an organization called WARF,
Mm-hmm.
which is a technology transfer organization that basically looks to commercialize university research. So all the great science that's taking place at universities, they're trying to monetize those things, a portion of which through startups and venture capital.
Yep.
So I joined their team. They just so happened to be looking for someone with an alternative background, so that worked out well.
Perfect.
I get there and I'm boldly saying, like, I want to work on all the startup related deals. And they say, sure, why not? And we're looking for someone who can take on this stuff. And so
Yep.
I'm now bringing my consulting skills to these startup opportunities as I'm analyzing, the markets these companies are going after, the ways in which they're looking to develop technology. And it's all these things are building muscles for the work itself, right? And then
Yep.
the work you do starts to compound because you're not wasting your time doing other things that are either not on your path or not within your strengths. And so because you're doing more, let's call them game time reps, right?
Yeah.
You're just better preparing yourself for an actual game, right? Like there's
Yeah.
no wasted motion anymore. And
Yep.
to me, that's the real power of focus. I
Mm-hmm.
think everything you say, everything you do starts to resonate better with the people around you who are listening to you. They then start to feed you things because it just sort of looks and appears as though you're moving in the right ways for the right reasons.
Yep.
And because you're now extra motivated, extra energized, et cetera, and feeding your not just yourself. You're now feeding your soul with this type of work, right? And fueling yourself. You learn at an accelerated rate, and you develop at an accelerated rate, and you do more. Like next thing I had gone from like a very, I wouldn't even call it casual book reader, but I'm starting to now read avidly in technology, in venture capital. I'm trying to soak up everything there is, and I'm not getting tired doing it because it's something that's just pouring into me. So, and it just continues to feed on itself.
That's powerful, man. I was just listening to Naval Ravikant, and founder of AngelList, and that's one of the key pieces that he talks about. Successful people not only read but love to read, and he gave the tip that start off reading things that either you want to learn about or that you enjoy, and that over time basically you'll develop like a level of effectiveness or like speed of reading and absorbing information that is like an elite skill and habit that can propel you to success within whatever vertical you kind of already are. And so it's crazy. I was just listening to that.
Talk about until like years later after I had done it. So I got so excited about reading all this material that I read everything I can get my hands on, right? The good books, the bad books, mediocre books. And as I found things start to repeat themselves or books that were good or bad, I just took it as a data point. Like, okay, well, done with this one, on to the next one. And before I knew it, I had kind of read 80% of the body of work in that space. And suddenly I'm starting to present something like an expert.
Oh, your top 1%. Easy, man. Easy. Good. That's
right?
it.
Just like go read the top books, the top 10 books on a particular topic, and now you are, completely differentiated from the rest of the pack. And I did that by complete luck and happenstance, but it worked out. And it's definitely true.
Well, great time, because we love sharing practical and pragmatic tips. You also, I'm gonna say it to you and share with you some advice that I give to people, and this will build exactly on what Zach just shared. Right, pick the top 15 to 25 books. And you don't have to go 25, but frankly, that 10 to 15, like Zach said, in whatever you want to become an expert on. Read those. Then, if you're looking to transition or even accelerate your career, pick 15 to 25 people that would switch places with tomorrow, right? Who are doing things that you think you want to do within that same space. And just ask for 15 to 30 minutes of their time to talk a little bit about how they got there, etc. And I guarantee you, because you've read those 10 to 15, like Zach said, one, you're going to know more than 95% of people that work in the space, number one, because people don't read. And then two, because you're asking for such a small time aspect, 15 to 30 minutes, the people with the fullest calendars I have, you're almost embarrassing people to spending time with you, right? Like nobody's going to tell you they don't have 15 minutes over the next 2 weeks, right? Like it's literally embarrassing. And if they do turn you down for 15 minutes, then you don't want to meet them anyway, right? But as you're sitting down with those folks and hearing more about, the next steps that you should potentially take, you're also, and this is what Zach just hinted on, you're going to be able to literally add value to them, because there's a possibility that you're going to be able to say, well, I'm sure, which is one of my favorite things to say, well, I'm sure that you've read such and such and such and such, right? And if they're the experts that there's only a couple of responses they're going to give you, right? Either they're going to say, yes, that was an excellent read. And then you're going to show that like you're on that level, you're reading the right things, right? Or they're going to say, you know what? No, I haven't read that. Tell me about it. And then you're going to be able to add some value to them. And if you want to really take your relationship building to a whole nother level, this is like guru relationship building nugget, right? They're going to probably say, I'm going to buy it, right? And what you then need to say is, don't worry about it. I'll send you a copy. Right? Right? And guru move, right? But once again, just a practical and pragmatic way to really take steps towards becoming, top 5, top 1%, I'd argue, in whatever field you want to pursue a little bit more. If we can, man, I'd love to, because two quotes literally came to my mind as you were talking. One is the classic Bruce Lee quote, right? Like, I don't fear the man that's practiced 1,000 kicks one time. I fear the man who's, and I'm sure I'm getting it wrong because I'm paraphrasing, but you get the gist. Like, but I do fear the man who's practiced one kick 1,000 times, right? And you talked about that from like a punching perspective, et cetera. But you also touched on reps, which since it's the Only Dream Big podcast, we'll shout him out. Shout out to Mark Cuban, because he talks about, the business of sports, right? Being a team owner of the Mavericks, et cetera, but also the sport of business.
Yeah.
And the difference in like, you could hit 30% of the time in Major League Baseball and go to the Hall of Fame, right? That 300 hitter is going to the Hall of Fame every time. But the reason why he loves the sport of business is because you have unlimited swings.
Yep.
And you only need to hit once.
One time.
Like, so you talked about the reps that you were able to, kind of build at Wharf, which by the way is like the first tech transfer, right? Like yes. in the history of tech transfer. So just so we put everything on a level, like you worked at the first one. And then I know, a number of organizations and stuff, moving forward, but can you talk through, your experience, in tying those two things together, how have you seen, because at least in my life, I found that there is significantly more power in creating opportunity as opposed to catching it.
Oh, yeah. And so I'll start with that around, since you brought up Naval. He has an interview where he talked about luck, the power of luck, and how certain people create their own luck. And he talked about what that meant to him. And it was about being prepared for opportunity. People will find you because you've done all the homework to get you to a certain spot. And so while yes, it's luck that they have found your name amongst a bunch of other names, it's not luck